The British penny of 1921 belongs to a period of profound transition in the United Kingdom, a moment in which the country was recovering from the devastation of the First World War, while simultaneously entering a new phase of economic, political, and social reform. The coin itself may look simple at first glance, but the circumstances that shaped its creation and circulation tell a story of national struggle, industrial change, and the evolution of British money minted under the reign of King George V, who ruled from 1910 to 1936. The 1921 penny stands at the intersection of old Victorian minting traditions and the new realities of a modernizing empire. In 1921, the Royal Mint was still coping with the after-effects of wartime demands, because during the war, enormous amounts of small coinage had been produced to meet the needs of soldiers' factories and civilian rationing systems. After the war, however, the economy shifted, inflation rose, and the public held on to coins differently, creating uneven patterns of supply and circulation. The penny of this year, therefore, reflects not only the artistic style of the early 20th century, but also the economic and industrial pressures that influenced how many were struck and how they entered daily life. The obverse of the 1921 penny features the portrait of King George V, designed by Sir Bertram McKennell. This portrait became one of the most recognizable royal effigies in British numismatic history, showing the king in a left-facing profile with a dignified expression intended to project stability. During a turbulent age, George V had guided Britain through the First World War and was now presiding over a period of Reconstruction trade weakness and rising labor unrest. The portrait on the penny symbolized continuity, reassurance, and national identity at a time when the empire was beginning to experience new political challenges, including independence movements in Ireland, India, and other regions of the world. The reverse side maintains the iconic image of Britannia, a symbol used on British coinage for centuries. Britannia appears seated, wearing a flowing classical gown, holding a trident in her left hand and a shield beside her adorned with the Union flag. The depiction represents British naval strength, stability, and imperial reach. But by 1921, this symbolism had developed new meaning. The British Empire was still vast, but the war had weakened its economic structure and challenged its global dominance. The presence of Britannia on the penny served as a reminder of the empire's resilience, but also reflected nostalgia for a period when naval power had been uncontested and industrial prosperity seemed unshakable. The metal composition of the 1921 penny remains bronze containing copper with small proportions of tin and zinc. The quality of metal used in coins of this period often varied due to the changing availability of raw materials after the war. Since copper supplies had been heavily consumed for ammunition and wartime equipment, the Royal Mint adapted its sourcing and manufacturing processes to keep coinage production stable. The strike quality of pennies during the early 1920s can sometimes reflect these fluctuations, with examples showing differences in color, strike depth, and wear characteristics, depending on how long they remained in circulation and which minting batch they belonged to. The economic environment of Britain in 1921 exerted a visible influence on the coin's history. The year saw recession, high unemployment, and the aftermath of the coal miners' strike, which deeply affected industrial output. The use of small denomination coinage like the penny was essential in everyday transactions because wages purchases and savings habits relied heavily on coins rather than paper banknotes for small amounts. The penny served as a crucial tool in working class communities where small sums mattered greatly for food transport and household necessities. During these years, British citizens were adjusting to rising prices and fluctuating wages, meaning the penny held significant practical value. Another important aspect of the 1921 penny is its place in the evolution of British minting techniques. The Royal Mint was gradually modernizing its equipment, experimenting with improved press machinery, and refining metal preparation processes. These advancements aim to produce coins with clearer features, longer circulation life, and lower defect rates. While earlier Victorian and Edwardian pennies sometimes showed inconsistent quality, the George V pennies from the early 1920s demonstrate a shift toward greater minting precision. The Royal Mint was also exploring designs and metal compositions that would eventually lead to major reforms in British coinage later in the century, including the shift toward decimalization. Collectors today view the 1921 penny as a key date in the series, not because it is extremely rare, but because it marks a return to steadier post-war minting after the disruptions of the 1910s. Many examples survive in circulated condition, showing the heavy wear typical of coins that passed through millions of hands during decades of economic activity. High-grade specimens, however, are highly sought after because the bronze surfaces of pennies from this era are prone to spotting toning, and marks that make well-preserved examples difficult to find. The condition of surviving coins reflects how extensively pennies were used in markets, factories, public transport systems, and everyday commerce across Britain and the Empire. In understanding the full historical significance of the 1921 penny, one must look beyond numismatics to the broader British landscape of the time Britain was navigating renewed debates about trade unions, foreign policy, economic stability, and imperial responsibility. The Irish War of Independence was concluding, leading to the partition of Ireland in the same year. The nation was redefining its identity and adjusting to the social consequences of wartime loss, including changes in class structure, shifts in labor demographics, and evolving public expectations for political leadership. The penny was a silent witness to these changes moving through the hands of workers, soldiers, housewives, merchants, and children functioning. As a symbol of the country's shared economic life, the coin also reflects the cultural environment of post-war Britain entertainment industry growth, urban development, and public infrastructure improvements. All involved transactions in which the penny played an active role. Penny fairs, penny newspapers, and penny tram fares were common parts of everyday life. The penny shop culture of the early 20th century represented an economic system where even the smallest unit of money carried weight and could affect family budgets. Penny savings banks encouraged disciplined saving among working-class communities, teaching financial responsibility and helping families build small reserves for emergencies. The legacy of the British penny of 1921 endures because it represents more than a monetary object. It is a compact artifact of Britain's transition from Victorian industrial might to 20th century modernity, symbolizing stability in monarchy tradition. In design and endurance in material, the 1921 penny continues to fascinate historians, collectors, and enthusiasts. As one examines the worn surfaces or the sharp details of a well-preserved specimen, they encounter the story of a nation rebuilding itself, adjusting to new global realities and confronting the challenges that shaped the rest of the century. The coin stands as a tangible reminder of the people who used it and the society that shaped it, preserving in its metal the echoes of British life in a defining historical moment.